Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 29 of our TCW Save in TEW 2020. This is Where Angels Fear to Tread, our April pay-per-view. And yes, that means we are on the road officially now to Total Mayhem with this pay-per-view, because that will be our next pay-per-view coming up after this. But as always, a lot to get to in this particular pay-per-view to get things moving towards our biggest show of the year at Total Mayhem. But let's jump in and start with the grudge match, which is Eddie Chandler and One Man Army. This has all been built up, based on sort of Wolf, the Syndicate, everyone trying to get rid of One Man Army. They just can't seem to keep this guy down. He keeps getting back up again and again. And as you can see here, it is Eddie Chandler getting the maybe somewhat surprise win over One Man Army here in singles action, 11:42 with the pinfall, following interference from Nate Johnson. So we really played up this with the Elite, interfering in matches. Like, that is kind of their theme now, is these two find a way to interfere in the other's matches. Seems to help them out a little bit, although it backfired recently in one of the matches. But it works out here. So you've got Eddie Chandler, Nate Johnson, and Doc Hammond. So everyone but Wolf Hawkins in the Syndicate. Ringside for this one, Johnson interferes, and Chandler able to steal a win here over One Man Army. 57, not a great match, but as you know, these, I'm going to tell you right now, declining physical ability, as we keep saying. These two both have declining physical ability, but it's okay, because this is more about the angle. And of course, we have been playing up the fact that on the last episode of Total Wrestling, you go further back than that, all about Wolf Hawkins wanting the Elite, Doc Hammond, to finish the job on One Man Army. Wolf Hawkins wants Army out of the picture completely. And so after the match, we get Chandler and Johnson sort of yelling at Doc Hammond because Chandler has just beaten One Man Army. So essentially, he feels like he's done his part. And then that is when these two remind Doc Hammond that Wolf said he is the one to finish the job here. So Army's down, he's starting to get back up, and, referee kind of checking on him, those kind of things. Because, again, he took a bit of a wallop here from Nate Johnson on the interference. The ref didn't see it, all that good heel shenanigan stuff, right? So they yell at Doc Hammond to finish the job. And, the crowd's starting to buzz a little bit here, and they repeat themselves. They're like, you better listen to us. Like, you better finish the job. It's time now. Like, finish the job. And you can see Doc Hammond. He is just looking at One Man Army, and Doc Hammond's eyes are just completely entrenched here on One Man Army. He is zoned in on Army, who is kind of making his way up now with the help of the referee, those kind of things. And Hammond has not taken his eyes off of Army. And then that is when we see Nate Johnson go over, and he just takes both of his hands, slaps Doc Hammond on the chest. Now remember, Wolf kind of gave him a little bit of a slap on Total Wrestling. So Nate Johnson takes both his hands, just slaps Doc Hammond right on the chest, and we see Hammond's eyes go from that silent stare at One Man Army. All of a sudden, he turns and looks at Nate Johnson. And so you got the crowd buzzing a little bit more here, wondering, whoa, hold on a second. What's about to happen? And so they lock eyes here. Johnson is just yelling at Doc Hammond. Eddie Chandler's now behind him. And that is when we see Doc Hammond just sort of turn, and we see the referee sort of helping One Man Army here, outside of the ring. And Doc Hammond just turns, and after he gives that stare to Nate Johnson, Hammond turns and just walks away, and he heads out through the crowd. So Doc Hammond is out of here, and Eddie Chandler and Nate Johnson are not happy. They are yelling at this guy the whole way, and Doc Hammond has left them high and dry here and gone through the crowd. And that's how we finish things up for now, as it gets to 66 with Doc Hammond not finishing the job here on One Man Army. Chandler and Johnson are pissed. What is Wolf going to say about this? A lot, perhaps, to find out here as we move forward. So there's your kind of opening sequence there with a big story, and we'll see how this advances from here. All right, now we get to a good match here. Joshua Taylor getting the win over Daryl Devine, 14-44. What does it? You guessed it. The butterfly lock again. 78 match here, so good stuff from these two guys. Taylor continue to deliver, one of our best in the ring. And yeah, I'm curious to see what we got here. Yeah, so no penalties here. This was about as good as it gets for these two, probably. And so, Taylor, the winning streak continues, right? We know now officially. We thought maybe Daryl Devine tried to make his case. If he won this match, he should be the person who faces Joshua Taylor in the other half of the International Championship match at Total Mayhem. Not to be for Daryl Devine. So it looks like he will not be the other member in that match. We'll find out on this show who it's going to be, but it's not going to be Daryl Devine. The ultimate underdog comes up short yet again, and he has no choice but to submit via the butterfly lock, which is just everybody has submitted to since December when Taylor lost in the main event to Aaron Andrews at Psycho Circus. So another win for Joshua Taylor, as confident as ever, as he's now a month away from that huge international championship match at Total Mayhem. So 78 for this one. All right, another match here as it is Ernest Youngman and Troy Tornado getting the win over Human Arsenal, John Anderson, and Dean Daniels. 9:36, Troy Tornado gets the pin on Dean Daniels with the Star Maker. So that is our story of development here. It's not Ernest Youngman getting the pin. Remember, we've come a long way now, right? Remember at the beginning, it was Ernest Youngman wouldn't even let Troy Tornado in the match. Youngman was doing it all himself. He was just, kicking everybody's ass, and that was that. But, the last couple matches, he's starting to let Troy Tornado get a little bit more involved here. So the big story was that, Youngman actually lets Tornado get the pin on Dean Daniels here. So the team, another win. So these guys have not lost together as a team. So they continue their hot streak in tag team action. So gets a 65 here for the match. Dean Daniels, the weak link, no surprise. He's one of our road agents, and Dean just loses pretty much. He's the old legend passing things on here because he's not winning any matches. But nonetheless, Ernest Youngman, 55. So we're continuing to make the push for Youngman. Troy Tornado does well. Arsenal, as we said, oldest guy on the roster, but he's a solid worker. So that's the story here. Troy Tornado getting a win in tag team action with Ernest Youngman. So we'll see what happens with this tag team moving forward. One of the hottest tag teams in the division right now. All right, another match. Ed Stone getting the win over Rodri Remus. I thought this could do a little bit better. Only got a 68 here, 15-22. Maybe it went a little long. I don't know, though. These two guys had pretty good stamina notes, but kind of a featured showcase match here for Ed Stone, getting the win over Remus. Party's over does it on this one. Probably not a lot to note here. So Ed Stone penalized for inconsistency. Okay, so they could have did a little bit better. But Stone gets the win, and again, bigger things to come for Ed Stone. But for now, he gets the win over Rodri Remus here, and we'll see again what we have in store for Ed Stone perhaps here on the road to Total Mayhem. But for now, a nice featured match for Stone, and he gets the win. All right, now it is the Elite, who it seems to be our resident. I don't know, like Sean Dokes just seems to find himself at all times with the Syndicate. And so we get Kyle Rhodes telling us on commentary that once again, Sean Dokes has instructed the cameras to follow him because he thinks he's on to something here with the story. He said he's seen the Elite kind of fuming, and he's seeing them going around, and they can't seem to find Wolf Hawkins. So we're seeing the cameras kind of following us here. Sean Dokes is kind of, trailing the Elite. So we see, though, Eddie Chandler and Nate Johnson finally sort of give up in the arena, so they walk outside into the parking lot. And that is where the Elite find Wolf Hawkins in the parking lot. We see Wolf walking towards the building. And as we see this, the camera gets out there just in time, and we see a car speed off behind Wolf Hawkins. And, Dokes doesn't really make much of it. The Elite they don't really make a whole lot of it. They just see Wolf Hawkins walking towards the arena. But it is notable that this car drives off as Wolf is making his way towards the entrance here. And so the Elite are saying, hey, where have you been? We've been trying to find you. Look, where's Doc? And Wolf's like, where's Doc? Where's Doc? And, Chandler and Johnson go to try to tell him what's going on. So they're both trying to speak here. You can tell, again, they're both not happy based on what happened. So they tell Wolf what happens, and Wolf just kind of, he just sort of nods his head a little bit, and he says, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. So Wolf, maybe a little, calmer and cool here than we would have expected given what Eddie Chandler and Nate Johnson had to say, but Wolf does seem pretty calm and collected as he's actually going to be in action coming up next. So that's kind of your break here, and then we kind of get all the, the events that sort of, highlight packages and such that led to this upcoming match, which it is going to be Wolf Hawkins going one-on-one with Chris Flynn, the former member of the Syndicate here. So, yeah, this is a big match, as we know, coming up, but Wolf seems to be maybe more focused on that than he is Doc Hammond. 77 for this one. Sean Dokes looked lost, but hey, he always looks lost. It's fine. It's Sean Dokes, right? So, I'm kidding. But he really does not do well in some of these, but it's okay. We don't use him a whole lot. All right, we get to the match. Wolf Hawkins, Chris Flynn. Who else never looks good in these segments? None other than Chris Flynn. So let's get to 77. We're not surprised. Again, Flynn's segments they don't do well. So the story here of this match is that Chris Flynn just really taking it to Wolf Hawkins, right? We see the aggression coming out. Wolf, again, pretty composed here, despite apparently turmoil with whatever's going on with the Elite, Doc Hammond, one-man army, all that. But Flynn taking it to Wolf. And so we just see Chris Flynn kind of letting out that rage, letting out, everything from getting the beat down from the Syndicate and all of that. But then we sort of see things yet again, and we've seen this, in the past, where just when you think someone has Wolf's number, Wolf turns up the aggression. Like he turns up, these hard strikes, all these different things, and that's where we see it here. But we see Wolf take this to an even bigger level. Like we see him just really hauling off on Chris Flynn here. I mean, he is just, all of a sudden, it changes from Chris Flynn being the ultimate aggressor to Wolf just taking this to, again, as commentary notes, Kyle Rhodes says it, we've never seen Wolf Hawkins like this. And so it's really Wolf bringing out the aggression here, 77, and you know what that's leading to. If you picked Chris Flynn in your Where Angels Fear to Tread prediction pool, I'm sorry to tell you that he is not going to be victorious in this match. Wolf gets the win. I think the biggest win here is this got an 81. This shows you how good Wolf is, because I was really wondering if we could get an 80 match out of Chris Flynn, and it turns out we did here. I got nothing against him, but he's just not on Wolf's level. But we go 15 minutes with these guys, so a nice 15-minute match. Again, really a tale of two stories here, or two halves of the match, with Chris Flynn kind of going at Wolf, but then Wolf taking this thing to another level. The Full Moon Rising does it. And so Wolf with a big win. We'll see perhaps how Chris Flynn rebounds, but he just got it, taken to him by Wolf. And even after the match, we can see that Flynn is just, he's out of it. Like, he just got a flurry of offense from Wolf. And so Flynn's out of it after the match. Again, 81, I am thrilled with this based on it being a Chris Flynn match. So Wolf Hawkins with the victory here for this one, and we'll see what's up next perhaps for Wolf. All right, to our tag team championship match. Mighty Mo, Tana, defending against the Peak brothers, Eddie Peak and Doug Peak. And your winners, and still TCW World Tag Team Champions, Mighty Mo and Tana, as Mighty Mo pins Doug Peak with a plunging spinebuster. And again, let me tell you, I am almost somewhat stunned too that this got a 75. Because Doug Peak's performance at 41, we knew Doug was going to be the weak link here. But we teamed up to Peak Brothers. That was intentional. But hey, bravo to Mighty Mo and Eddie Peak for 74s for their in-ring performance. They really brought this up. And I think we also made this a wild brawl. So these guys went all out. Clearly that helped a little bit. Except for Doug Peak. We knew that wasn't going to work out. But this was the match where, you have to have a wild brawl on the show. So we put it here because I figured that would work out well for maybe Eddie Peak perhaps. But nonetheless, the bigger story again, Mighty Meaty, still your tag team champions. And once again, it is Mighty Mo and Tana getting one over on the Center Society as a whole and Eddie Peak. So what happens after the match, you can probably guess. This thing's been building and building and building, right? And Eddie Peak has made it known that, his frustration has grown time and time again with his team not being able to get back these tag team championships. Now he's come up short again, although it's his brother's fault because he's the one that got pinned. So after the match, Eddie Peak just loses it. We see Mo and Tana going to the back with their championships, and then we kind of see them turn around in the aisle as they look back, and it is Eddie Peak who is just throwing stuff around the ringside area. He's gone over to Kyle Rhodes in the announce desk. He's taken all of their papers and everything the television monitors, Eddie Peak is just destroying everything ringside. He is losing it. Doug Peak's trying to calm him down. Eddie Peak just shoves him out of the way. So he's pissed at his brother. And Eddie Peak is just going off ringside. We have officials coming down to try to hold off Eddie Peak. He's thinking about just taking shots at fans and officials and all that. Peak has he's lost it here. This was the breaking point for Eddie Peak. He could not get the job done. He said he was going to lead by example for the Center Society, and he couldn't do it. So, what happens next with Eddie Peak and the Center Society, we will find out. But what we do know, we still have our same tag team champions. Mighty Montana, still your champs as the TCW champs move forward here. 68 for the segment. All right, now we get to this next one. And look, like I said, this was not your typical TBone match here. TBone has been in very high-profile spots, as we know, over the past several months. This was sort of the showcase match, kind of like Ed Stone had earlier. But again, I won't say it just yet. 61 for the match. TBone gets the win over Seth Whitehead. So Seth Whitehead, one of our promising young developmental guys, gets himself on a pay-per-view here. That's a 31 in-ring performance. That doesn't help. But having both these guys off their game didn't help either. TBone, by the way, hitting the lariat for the win. Just inconsistency. Didn't help off their game. So not that this would have been anything special, but we still thought maybe get a little bit more out of this with TBone in it. But that is not the full story of the match, because the bigger story is what happens after the match. TBone gets the win, and where do we look? We see the cameras panning over, and it is Kyle Rhodes getting up from his announced position as Kyle Rhodes walks into the ring, and that is when Kyle Rhodes congratulates TBone Bright on his victory over Seth Whitehead, and especially on the streak he's been on. And Kyle Rhodes points out all of his accolades recently here in TCW, all the wins he's been racking up. He's been in main event matches, all of this. And Kyle Rhodes points out, I know the fans are completely behind you. So, Rhodes says, TCW officials have decided that you deserve a bigger opportunity. And that is when we get Kyle Rhodes announce that TBone Bright will be the opponent for Joshua Taylor in the returning International Championship match at Total Mayhem. So, T-Bone's shot at singles gold. He is the other half of our International Championship match. Joshua Taylor, who has been on an absolute tear. He's not losing to anybody. TBone Bright, who's been on an absolute tear. He's not losing to anybody. These two guys will square off for the International Championship at Total Mayhem. So, T-Bone shaking Kyle Rhodes' hand, and, fans getting their T-Bone chants in, all this other stuff. Who will win in the battle of two of the hottest stars in the sport right now? T-Bone and Joshua Taylor. We will find out. There is another match added to our Total Mayhem card. 68 here for the segment. All right, now we get to this sort of our semi-main event here. This is in the semi-main spot, and of course it is, because it's Freddie Huggins, who just main evented the last pay-per-view at Battleground. It is Freddie Huggins and Matt Hawking taking on Benny and the Fox, Benny Benson and Flying Jimmy Fox. This one goes almost 15 minutes here, 75 rating. I will definitely take this, which for these teams, especially when you see it, because, in-ring performances, guys off their game, it still gets a 75. I'm going to base that solely on Freddie's performance here. It is Freddie getting the win over Benny Benson with the Huggins kiss after what? A little interference from LCH here. Laura Catherine Huggins gets a little interference. We'll get a little manager interference here for this one to give the heels the victory. But it is Freddie and Matt Hawking getting the win. Benny Benson, the weak link here, 53 on this one. Look, Benny's another declining physical ability. It is what it is at this point. We got so many of those guys. But nonetheless, this did way better than I thought it would, in all honesty. Even Freddie getting penalized for inconsistency here. But a 75, we'll take that. And, yeah, it's just kind of Freddie. As we know, remember, what set all this up was because Benny Benson and Flying Jimmy Fox broke up Freddie's letter reading. And, Benson ripped up the letter and all this other stuff. Could we have an encore for Freddie reading this letter about what he deserves? We'll find out. But just remember what set all this up. And now maybe Freddie feels like he's got some vengeance. Will we get the letter part 2 from Freddie Huggins? We'll find out. 75. Great match, all things considered for these two. All right. Now, before we get to the main event, of course, there's something else we promised on this show, and that is the official contract signing for Sammy Bach and Jay Cord. We know this match will take place at Total Mayhem. It was announced a couple weeks ago. It is official that these two are going to square off one-on-one grudge match. Total Mayhem, 89 for the segment, of course, because these guys are just tremendous. And so I know how we view contract signings in this era in professional wrestling. It's like, I feel like any contract signing can't have any shenanigans here. But this is pretty simple. This is Kyle Rhodes coming in, also bringing out some TCW officials, so we get some higher-up officials coming out. And, we've just kind of got these two guys separated. And first, we see Kyle Rhodes, point over to Sammy Bach and ask him to sign the contract, please, to make this match official. And then we also get Kyle Rhodes calling over Jay Cord. And that's when we, kind of get Jay Cord doing his thing here. He slows down. He looks like he's thinking about it. He's just like contemplating whether he should sign it. He goes over and does it again. He puts his arm around Kyle Rhodes, which, remember, we've kind of played this up. Jay Cord was almost essentially going to attack Kyle Rhodes before a certain someone made their TCW debut. And so Jay Cord's just over. He's really just milking this. And Sammy Bach, you can see, Bach just wants to, you can tell Bach just wants to go over and just haul off on this guy. But we've got TCW officials kind of in between these two to make sure nothing happens here. And then finally, Jay Cord just goes over and he signs the contract to make this match official. And then, we just see Jay Cord taunting Sammy Bach here as officials kind of continue to push these guys in opposite directions to make sure, there's no chaos here. And so that's kind of how we wrap this up. And so these two guys essentially done here, and they have signed the contract. It's official. Jay Cord playing it up, taunting Sammy Bach. More to come on this because we've still got plenty of time to build this up even more over the next month for Total Mayhem. So let's get to an 89. But, again, we know the main event. It's Aaron Andrews versus Greg Gage, one-on-one, non-title. This is about who's the best here. And we know who these two are partners with. These two are linked to the two guys in the main event, right? So, Kyle Rhodes steps back to the announce position. The officials start to walk back, and we see them kind of continuing. Jay Cord goes back, and then Sammy Bach, kind of makes his way back a little bit afterwards. So Greg Gage makes his entrance, and who do you think comes right back out with him? It is Jay Cord. So Greg Gage makes his entrance. Jay Cord comes out. So we just saw him leave the ringside area, right? But he comes right back out. Well, then Aaron Andrews makes his entrance because these two seemingly think they got a one-up or something on it. But then who comes out with Aaron Andrews? Of course, it's Sammy Bach. So we're right back to where we just were, except we don't have all the officials out here. We got Jay Cord on one side on the outside. We got Sammy Bach on the other. But perhaps these two know it's a little bit bigger. It's not just them. It's all about the main event here. Aaron Andrews, Greg Gage, one-on-one, our world champion, our TV champion, going at it here in what was a special challenge match. 85 for the segment. So what's going to happen in our main event? Well, of course there's going to be shenanigans, right? This is what we do. All right. So because Jay Cord and Sammy Bach were not able to get their hands on each other during the match, we get a good match going here. A bit of a lengthy match, as you would expect from Aaron Andrews and Greg Gage, two champions. These two kind of showcasing their skills. And so, of course, things eventually break down to where Jay Cord is able to get in a cheap shot on Sammy Bach. So these two are taunting each other the entire match. And then eventually it's Cord hitting another cheap shot. It's kind of been the theme here. He hits another cheap shot on Sammy Bach. So Bach's down. He's just taking a low blow from Jay Cord. And so then you're looking around saying, uh-oh, this is the moment that Jay Cord's going to be able to get involved in this match and maybe help Greg Gage beat the World Heavyweight Champion. But doesn't happen because here he comes yet again to save the day. It's Angry Gilmore who makes his way down the aisle, and now Angry Gilmore goes over to Jay Cord, and you can tell that Angry Gilmore is not happy. You know why? Because he's angry. And so he goes over, and he's got this, again, very serious looking face, and Jay Cord realizes he may have messed up here. So Gilmore starts going after Jay Cord, able to run him off. So we get Jay Cord kind of out of the picture here. Jay Cord is kind of run off because Gilmore's sort of chasing him. That leads to the finish, And after a grueling match, these two back and forth, two champions here, as we said, just not enough for Greg Gage. Oh, 81. See, this disappointed. This should have done a lot better. I mean, look, in-ring performance 88, 84, a very disappointing main event, if I do say so myself. We were expecting a much better rating here for these two. I mean, even going 22 minutes, I think we set it for 23. I don't think it affected that much because these two are pretty good from a stamina standpoint. So we could look and see maybe we've been a little too long. Just the inconsistency from Aaron Andrews. So, yeah, I mean, it happens, right? So it's okay. 81 for the match, but it is Aaron Andrews getting the win over Greg Gage. And again, the flying body press eventually does it. The story here, though, is that Greg Gage, the TV champion, the heel, all the shenanigans with Jay Cord, but it really is kind of commentary pushing that, look, Greg Gage, he can wrestle. Like, he's a very talented up-and-coming star, and that's kind of what you're pushing here, is that he was able to sort of match Aaron Andrews and make this such a long match. And he fought until he just could not, get out of the flying body press here, the finisher from Aaron Andrews. So it's kind of the story, even though Greg Gage is the heel, kind of pushing that, hey, he's got the skills, and he almost got the World Heavyweight Champion, but he just couldn't do it. And Aaron Andrews victorious here in our champion versus champion match. 81, like I said, for the match. Not thrilled with that, but that's okay, because of course we're not finishing with this. Because afterwards, Jay Cord has been run off. We know that. Greg Gage is, down and out. He's had a grueling match. He's tired. He's outside. So that leaves who? It leaves Aaron Andrews. Sammy Bach's helped up by Angry Gilmore. Aaron Andrews, Angry Gilmore, Sammy Bach are in the ring. Well, there's three other men out there that also have made their way towards the ring. So Aaron Andrews, checking on Sammy Bach after the low blow. Angry Gilmore's in there. These three conversing. Here comes Wolf Hawkins, Eddie Chandler, Nate Johnson, the Elite, the Syndicate, without Doc Hammond, start walking down the aisle. So we've got these three in the ring, these three making their way towards it. We all know what's about to go down here. 91 for this segment. Nate Johnson underwhelming. That's okay. So all three of these in the ring, all three of these guys walk down to the ring, and then they stop. As Wolf Hawkins looks over at Eddie Chandler, he looks over at Nate Johnson, and he tells them, wait right here. Wait right here. Wolf slowly walking up the steps into the ring, and then Wolf just looking at Aaron Andrews. He looks back to the Elite, and Wolf just kind of holds his hands up as if to say, you know what I'm doing here. And so Aaron Andrews looks over at Sammy Bach. He looks over at Angry Gilmore, and he kind of says, it's okay. It's okay. And then Aaron Andrews just kind of points outside the ring, and Sammy Bach's thinking about this. He's like, hold on a second. I've seen this before. No. I'm not getting out of the ring. No way. And Aaron Andrews is like, no. It's okay. It's okay. And so finally, Aaron Andrews is able to convince Sammy Bach with the Elite sort of backing up on the outside. Wolf is in the ring all by himself here. And so Aaron Andrews eventually convinces Sammy Bach to go outside. He convinces Angry Gilmore to go outside, but not without Wolf and Angry Gilmore sort of exchanging some stares here at these two. And what does that do? After these two get on the outside on the opposite side of the ring, these two are the outside on the other side of the ring, it leaves two men standing face to face inside the middle of the ring. And it is, of course, Aaron Andrews and Wolf Hawkins in a 99 segment. We almost got that 100. These two step towards each other, little slow steps, until finally they are face to face, and we see Wolf Hawkins take a big stare at that TCW World Heavyweight Championship. Aaron Andrews takes a stare at the championship, and then Andrews just is, again, these two hate each other. Like, we know this is a fact. And before we can see anything else, Kyle Rhodes is like, folks, we don't know what's going to happen, but we've got to go off the air here at Where Angels Fear to Tread. And that is just when we see these two nose to nose. And then Wolf just kind of backs off. As we go off the air, we see Wolf Hawkins stepping back and making his way out of the ring. So 99 to wrap up this pay-per-view. And these two, face-to-face, title stare down. But again, notable that Wolf decides to go it alone in the ring, and then Wolf is the first person to step out of this exchange as we wrap up this pay-per-view. All right, so we get an 84 for this one. I mean, I thought this was kind of a setup show for the biggest show of the year, so I'm going to be okay with an 84. We know it's kind of, led by some pretty decent stuff. Like I said, I would have liked the main event to be a little bit better. But Wolf and Chris Flynn, I mean, that delivered to me. I didn't know if Wolf could get an 81 out of Chris Flynn, but he did. Even the tag team title match, I think, was better than I thought it would be. Huggins and Hawkins and Spinning the Fox. So really the back half really delivered. First half had some setup stuff, but remember, Joshua Taylor had a 78 match with Daryl Devine. Those two always do a pretty good job as well. And then, of course, big angles involved. That helps. So there you go. That was Where Angels Fear to Tread. Hope you enjoyed that pay-per-view. And we'll make some speeches here, and then we'll see what we get to before we wrap up. All right, so that was Where Angels Fear to Tread, an awesome show, getting fantastic reviews. Let's check our mail. We completed our warming up period, so we were in that 1 month warming up phase after we got to the big size. So now eligible for the area battles, so that is worth noting. Here as we move forward, drug test fees, we got 710,606 viewers. So that's not bad. Buy rate 1.42. I don't remember our previous buy rates, but I'm going to assume this is the biggest because, again, we have raised our profile a bit. But that was the pay-per-view. And, again, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Total Mayhem is our next pay-per-view. We are in Total Mayhem month here in May. So, and boy, I was like one of these things where I wish we were running the WWE save that we did. Where we got 2 shows a week because I feel like I needed to cram all the stuff in we need to get in before Total Mayhem. But I think we got a pretty good way to be able to do it. So it should be a lot of fun to do that. And again, our biggest pay-per-view of the year, I think, is just going to be, it's going to be must-see. Of course it should be, but I'm really excited about it now that we're kind of getting back into the groove here. So we will, again, do that, and I mentioned I teased another new save on the way, perhaps some other stuff that I'm working on that may be exciting for those of you who've watched some of the other saves that have been inactive on the channel, and so, there could be one of those coming back sooner than you think. So, a lot of fun stuff here in the works as we're back up in a groove here on the channel, and again, should be a lot of fun to do that. But let me know what you think about the pay-per-view, and hope you enjoyed it. A lot of fun stuff in the works here. And on the next episode of our TCW Save, it will be our State of TCW for May 2020.